All right, welcome ceramics. Today we are going to discuss how to add a handle to your mug. Your mug at this stage should be put together. You should have put a joining coil on the inside and ideally also put one on the inside seam. Your mug should be smooth on the outside. You should not see any visible seams, and you should go through and smooth out the rim as well as smooth out the bottom. Your piece should be a wet leather hard, meaning it's got some squishiness to it, but it's holding its shape. So here's an example of a mug with a handle. Typically a handle is placed a little below the rim and a little bit above the foot to allow for a comfortable hold. You also want to think about who's using the handle. My stepfather, for instance, is a very big guy, so he likes to have a big mug with a really big handle. My mom, on the other hand, is under 5 feet tall, so she prefers a more delicate handle and a more delicate mug. But you also do have to think about the size of the mug, and many of you are going small because of time restrictions. So think about proportions. So I've rolled out a slab using my slab sticks and my roller, and I made sure my slab sticks were hugging my slab so that when I rolled it out, it was nice and even. So if you look at the sides, it's nice and even. And now I'm going to cut out my handle. It might take a couple practice tries to get it right. So I wouldn't necessarily go right for the center. I would, use the side, and then you'll have a little bit left if you make a mistake. So a handle in general starts out a little larger at the top and then usually kind of tapers off toward the bottom. So kind of this shape. For the mug that I'm making now, this is around the length that I would recommend. So if I were to give you some general measurements, it's around 1 inch at the top here. Okay. And this length is about 4 inches. And then down here, this is about 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to cut this out now. I'll post these measurements online for you as well. And again, my mug's a little bigger than yours, so you might want to go a bit smaller than this. If you are doing a 3-inch mug, you are not going to want to make it 4 inches long. You might want to go more like 3 inches long. And I don't know exactly if this is going to work, but I'm pretty sure. I've been doing this for a while. I've made a lot of mugs. So now I've got my handle. It looks a little thick and kind of rough, right? It has sharp edges. So now I'm going to go through and take my finger, and I'm going to dip my finger in a little bit of water, and I'm going to do something called compressing. So I'm going to kind of compress and soften the edge. And I'm going to do that over here as well. And then I might pick it up and kind of soften the back edge a little bit too. And I might even squeeze a little bit between my fingers to get a nice soft handle. There are many ways that you can make handles. This is one of many methods. And then I might even kind of squish the top a little bit, soften it a little bit. Then I'm going to curl it, and I want to get this kind of ear shape. If you look at any mug in your house, you'll notice typically a mug has a little bit more room at the top, the handle, and then it has a little bit less room at the bottom. Just that's kind of how you fit your hand in, right? But again, a handle can really be what you want, but do think you might want to think about the ergonomics of it. You certainly can do something more sculptural, but this kind of handle is a bit more awkward and not super functional. In terms of where you place your handle, I like to place it on the joint because I think it kind of helps to hide the joint a little bit. If your piece feels a little flimsy or you're worried about putting it on the joint, you certainly could put it elsewhere. You want to make sure your joint is still kind of smoothed over and covered. You shouldn't use it to cover it up, but it will help to kind of take the attention away from that area, I find. In terms of where I'm going to put my handle, I'm going to mark out where it's going to go. So it's going to go a little bit below the rim, about 3/4 of an inch, and a little bit above the foot of the piece. And then I'm going to rough it up, also known as scoring. right? I am also going to take my handle, which is quite wet now. You want to make sure the handle and the form are at the relatively same moisture level. Sometimes what I will also do, and I'm going to try to zoom in here, is I will try to angle this handle by using, I know I usually would use a knife, but I'm kind of angling the bottom of the handle so it hits the mug just right. And I'm scoring that as well. So now I'm going to gently lay my mug on the table. If you're worried about it getting squished, you can also lay it on a towel so that it doesn't move and doesn't get too squished. And then I'm going to play around with my handle here a little bit and see how I want it to look. And that looks pretty good to me. So now I'm going to take my slip mixture. I actually don't have my toothbrush right now, so I'm going to apply that to the piece. My slip's getting a little bit dried out. If your slip is really dry, you might want to add a little bit of water to it. All right, and then I'm going to attach this. So once you've got your handle attached, you're going to want to kind of give it a little bit of a push. I'm holding the inside of the mug and I'm gently pushing the handle into place. Same thing here, I'm gently pushing it into place. And then you can dip your finger in a little bit of water and smooth it on. And then I'm going into all my seams and kind of smoothing my seams out. I also like to use my blending tool. Before I blend too much, what I want to do and what is going to help this handle stay is to make some small coils. So I'm going to take my remaining clay over here and I am going to roll a coil, which is a long snake of clay. It's very important that this clay is wet, otherwise it will not blend nicely. And I'm going to wrap it around the rim. I might put a little water on it so it sticks good. So it kind of made like a little Band-Aid almost, right? So now what I'm going to do is take and smooth that into place. So I'm using my modeling tool, going back and forth very, very gently. If this clay is really dry, it's not going to help you to kind of blend very well. It's going to be really hard to blend. And then I might take my finger in some water because it's really hard to get into those nooks and crannies and further blend it. Another tool that you can use if you're finding that the blending tool isn't really doing the job is you can use a paintbrush dipped in some water, but don't go overboard. You don't want this to be too wet. Okay, my last step will be making a tiny coil here and then adding some decoration. It's important that you let it dry very slowly, this piece, because the handle is much thinner than the rest of the, generally thinner than the rest of the piece, and so the attachment is kind of fragile too. So it's important that you let this dry very slowly because it has such a kind of a thin attachment area. Handles often crack right here, which is very frustrating, and it can make it a weak spot. So my next presentation, I'll show you how to do some attachments after I do some coils on the base. Thanks for watching.